Hello, 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 and welcome to Storytelling Tip Thursdays. Yes, what's up? What's up, Jesse? I'm so glad to see you here, brother. What's up, Facebook? How y'all doing? Ideas that ignite. Ideas that ignite. Yo, yo. I got my orange on for y'all today because we're heading into one of my favorite seasons, the fall season, and so many of you all know that I love pumpkin. It's just like in my soul. Pumpkin is like in my soul. So like I got the little earrings for y'all today, got the outfit going. But we are going to be talking about not getting spooked during your presentations. So memorization techniques, presentation techniques. This is going to be drawing all of the information that I know as a storyteller from TED into just like one great presentation about how to actually ease your way into stellar presentations, right? Sound good? So let me just make sure that we are streaming all okay over here on Facebook. What's up, Jesse? I saw one of your live streams the other day, and it was just really cool to see what you've been up to kind of get the vibe of your community, to see what people are like talking about. And actually, I'm really glad that you're here on this call today, on this stream, I should say, because I actually had to just take a moment to just breathe and meditate. And meditation and getting into like the right mindset for presentation is definitely one of the things that I need to work on personally. I'm going to share with you a couple of stories about what happened to me when I was getting ready to present at TED, and how I was not able to calm my nerves because of certain issues, but how you can actually avoid all of this. Okay, so thank you, Jesse. Shout out to the Big Quiet. If any of y'all are interested in more meditation techniques and opportunities, just definitely check out Jesse Israel over at the Big Quiet. All right, so let's make sure that we are good on the Facebook stream. Bear with me for one sec. Okay, right. Awesome. Oh, wow. We got some people in the house today. All right, so today, getting spooked, presentation and memorization techniques for storytellers and public speakers. So before jumping into today's topic, I want to first give a recap of where we've been, because we've been doing these lives now for about 2 months leading into what's going to be an epic fall. So for those of you who are like brand new to this community, I know a lot of y'all have joined in the past couple of months or the past couple of weeks even, or even days. So if this is your first presentation with me, I just want to give a recap of where we've been for the past 2 months. So in case you're interested, you can go back, check out some of the recordings in the Ideas That Ignite Facebook group, okay? So we started off on July 30th with how to find stories worth sharing. How to even find these stories worth sharing. So kind of like digging into your memory bank, digging into those emotions, those times that you really kind of felt compelled to say something, to feel something, to do something, and actually digging into how to make those into stories. So that's where we started off on July 30th. From there on August 6th, we're all talking about expansion and contraction. Expansion and contraction. In other words, how do you take like a moment? How do you take a kernel of a moment and expand that into like a full story, or into a speech, or into an idea, right? Or if you have a tendency for going on and on and on and on, how do you contract it? How do you edit it? How do you just get to the juicy, meaty parts of the presentation? What's up, Steph? My homegirl out in Kenya. Yes. Hello, hello. Welcome. Just kind of giving a recap of where we've been over the past couple of months on Storytelling Tip Thursdays. So in case any of y'all want to check out any of the past material, you can join the Ideas That Ignite page and check out some of these recordings. So on August 13th, we had I Feel You, which is sharing mesmerizing moments. So that was all kind of getting into like, the senses that we talk about in Western philosophy: sight, sound, taste, touch, and smell, to like really bring out things in your stories, as well as things in Eastern philosophy. So the thinking mind, the feeling body. So if you're trying to like really get into sharing really powerful moments using the senses, you can check that one out. August 20th, we talked about going from mundane to magnificent, right? So how can you just take like a very small detail of life and actually turn that into something really kind of special? In that presentation, I shared with you moving back to California from being in New York for 14 years and on the East Coast in general for 16 years. And one of these very special moments with my twin brother, when I just kind of, we have this routine where I shave him, because he needs a little bit of help with his shaving, grows out his beard rather quickly. But how do you actually take like a moment, like a small moment like that, and turn it into actually something that could be story worthy, right? What's up, Regina? I see you in the house over on our live stream on Facebook. So from there, we went to mind maps and formats. Mind maps and formats. So a lot of times people have like a lot of ideas. How do you actually map this out? And one of my favorite techniques is to use sticky notes. Sticky notes. Yes, I know, super simple, super easy, but how do you actually like map this out utilizing your sticky notes? So give me 1 second here. There we go. Awesome. So then a week after that, we had on September 3rd, leading into September, we looked at choosing and crafting your TED-worthy idea. Choosing and crafting your TED-worthy idea. So that's when we started to transition a little bit from the stories into your idea for your TED Talk and the difference. I'm going to be talking a lot about this in just a bit, but there's a significant difference between an idea worth spreading, a story, and a presentation. They're all totally different tools that you can utilize in your own vocabulary, in your own communications, but they're different. And what TED is looking for is going to be very different from just a story or just a speech, all right? So what exactly is that, and how do you actually craft your idea? Then on September 10th, we're wrapping up here. So September 10th, we had through lines. What is a through line? Like, how does that actually allow you to take your audience on a journey? How does that allow you to take your audience on a journey? Because remember, you're using your words, you're using your energy, you're using your soul in order to take people on a journey so that you can convince them of something, or you can persuade them, or probably even to entertain, right? But like, imagine that you are on a boat and you get to take the scenic route all along the Amazon River as you're showing them the colors of the flowers, the smell of the trees, the sting of the bees, right? You get to like actually take them on this journey. Give me 1 second. I think I need to close this door. 1 second. Sorry about that. All right. So, and then last but not least, last week, we had the art of mobilizing masses and persuading the pessimistic, right? Which was all about understanding a little bit of psychology. The psychology behind, like, how do you actually break down somebody who already has a belief around something? A lot of people already have convictions. They have their beliefs, they have their values. And those are hard to break if you're trying to convince somebody to think otherwise, or to adopt your opinion, or to adopt your viewpoint. How do you actually do that, right? And so there's ways that you can do this by like creating evidence and kind of like showing the different evidence, and then kind of distilling each one of those pieces of evidence until you reach a new conclusion. Or perhaps it's a matter of like taking the ideas that you have and building it into little tiny chunks, like almost like stepping stones, so that by the end of it, people really kind of get into your idea, your philosophy, right? So that was last week, the art of mobilizing masses and persuading the pessimistic. So if any of these are of interest, be sure to check out the replays. The replays, most of them are on Instagram, and all of them are on the Ideas That Ignite page, except for the very first one. Okay, so Ideas That Ignite Facebook group, you can check out the replays, or you can check them out on Instagram. This week, it's all about not getting spooked, memorization, presentation techniques. And then the week after that, which will be the last of this series, will be about 1 minute video audits. Okay, well, 1 minute video audits. So just out of curiosity, who here has been to more than one or two of these presentations? Go ahead and just like put it in the chat. Like if you've been to one, if you've been to two, if you've been to 5+. So far, this is week number 9. Week number 9. So put in the chat, like, how many of these have you seen so far? Which ones have you liked? I know Christina. Yeah, Christina, I've seen you. Like, I think since like probably the first one, right? I think so. How many have you been to, and like which one was your favorite? Regina, yes, Regina. 4 or 5 of them, Christina, definitely, definitely. Regina, how many have you been to? I think that I only didn't see you at one of them. So I'd love to know like which ones like stood out to you, why, because this is all going to be leading up to an epic, epic mini summit. Okay, so before I even get into that, Regina says that she's been to at least 3. That you lost track, girl. Tell me about it. I lost track too. But you know what? That's why I had to kind of go back and like recap like what I've actually been through so far. But if you're watching this, I want you to mark your calendars for the week of October 5th. So it's not next week, but it's the week after. The week of October 5th is going to be so epic, y'all. Like, let me just give you like a breakdown of what's going to be going on the week of October 5th. The week of October 5th, we're doing a mini summit, okay? A mini summit. I'm one person, so I'm not doing a massive summit, but I'm doing a mini summit. Now, on October 5th, we're going to be bringing in Shannon Kaysen from Homemade Stories. Shannon is one of the people who has really been able to take his story and translate that into an amazing TEDx talk. And once he enrolled in one of my courses, Story to Speech, he was able to take his TEDx talk and land at least 6-figure deals in terms of coaching, in terms of like working with others with podcasts. So I'm going to be talking to Shannon about his journey, how he was able to leverage his TED Talk into becoming, a 6-figure business. On October 6th, we got Daphne LeBlanc coming in. She is from Cafe and Laptop. She is a digital media strategist. So much of what we have to do these days in terms of like actually getting out our word has to deal with digital media. Some of the stuff that I've been learning over the past, 2 months. So she was able to take her own talk and leverage that into a whole speaking circuit. So she's going to be talking about how to utilize social media to leverage your talk. On the 7th is going to be a special day because I'm going to be setting that up a little bit later, but that is going to be the day that we look at your 1-minute video. And I'm going to be doing audits of your 1-minute video. So I'm going to be setting that up for you all at the end of this session as well as next week. So get ready to submit your 1-minute video audits. I'm going to be bringing you some of you all up on the screen with me, sharing some of those videos, sharing what you could do to tweak it, so we can actually see what you're working with, right? Y'all good so far? Y'all liking this so far? Because it's getting better. It's getting better. All right. So October 8th, we have Felicia. I think her last name is Jones, but she's from an organization called I Book, You Close. I Book, You Close. So in other words, if you want to get your word out there beyond just one stage, Felicia is your woman. She knows how to find booking gigs and just leverage the hell out of them. So all you need to do is tell her like what your category is, who you want to target. And she has like a mastermind group where she finds she finds the gigs, you close the gigs, right? And then, ladies and gentlemen, I have to take a sip of water. I'm just so excited about this. On October 9th, the one, the only speaker curator from TED itself, from TED, will be joining us exclusively in the Ideas That Ignite group. Her name is Chloe Shasha, excuse me. And she was actually at my TED engagement in New York City in 2013. Now she's responsible for every single speaker that lands on the stage of TED. She is going to be coming and joining with us, breaking down all the different iterations of TED, what they're like looking for in terms of diversity, inclusion, ideas, what lands, what doesn't, like a whole slew of great stuff. All right. That's all going to be going on during our mini 5-day summit. So all the trainings and whatnot are going to be leading up to that summit. And then on October 9th, once we're done with Chloe, registration is going to be open. Registration is going to be open for the Ideas That Ignite Masterclass, which is going to be for those of you who want to be part of this group, continue being part of this group, and for me to stop talking to you and actually start coaching you. We've done a little bit of coaching so far, but actually like getting into the meat and potatoes, not the nuts, not the nuts, the meat and potatoes of your talk. So, and that's going to kick off officially on October 19th. Okay. So I know there's a lot of dates that have been thrown at you, a lot of stuff that's been, just kind of in the background. But anyways, just keep in mind, October 5th is when the mini summit's going to be kicking off. If you're interested in joining the mastermind, mark the dates for registration opening on October 9th and the program beginning on October 19th. Yeah, Christina, like nuts and bolts, not peanuts and nuts and nuts and bolts. That's what that's. Thank you. Nuts and bolts, meat and potatoes. There's all these like little acronyms and whatnot. Anywho, I'm glad that tomato. Y'all are hilarious. All right. So, oh my gosh. Yes. Thank you, Regina. Nuts and bolts, meat and potatoes, tomato, right? It's all language, right? So, y'all are ready? Like, who has a 1-minute video that they want to submit, right? Think about it. Think about what kind of audio would you want to submit if you had to submit it to TED. I'm going to be talking about this like next week, but I just want to put it in your mind now. I want to put it in your mind now because I know y'all are top of this, right? So anyways, that's where we've been. That's what's coming up for the 5-day summit. Now, we're going to jump into today's topic. Today's topic is don't get spooked. Memorization and presentation techniques for storytellers and public speakers. All right. So the first thing that I want to mention is like when you are coming up with your presentation, depending on what kind of presentation you're telling, you might want to consider either use some type of visuals, some type of photos, some type of illustration, some type of graphs, videos, animation, audio. These are all different things that you could potentially use in your presentation, right? The key for a lot of these is not to use them excessively and not to get too bogged down. So I'm going to explain to you and kind of talk through some of the different moments that you will want to use presentation guidance and when not to. Okay. Now I want to give you a little bit of a backdrop. So in 2013, when I was about to do my TED Talk, the curators from TED come to me and they say, Dawn, how about using slides? And I said, how about not? Okay, no, I don't use slides. And I know that a lot of people prefer to use slides, but that wasn't my MO. That wasn't what I was all about. But they were like really kind of insisting that I try something different, right? So I want to share with you some of the tips and tools that I learned while using slides, when not to use slides, and some of the things that can kind of like, make it nuanced, better or worse. So I first want to pull up my own presentation from 2013. So the first, actually, before I do that, a second. Okay, great. So yeah, so let's go ahead and pull up my presentation from 2013. Now, the first time that you want to even consider utilizing a slide is when you have like a big reveal, okay? So this would be the first consideration when you want to use slides, especially in the case of a TED Talk or a TEDx talk. If you have something that you want to reveal to your audience, in other words, something that's really hard to explain, right? If you're talking about like a massive 20-pound whale, no, whales are like more like 20 tons. If you want to talk about a 20-pound dog and you're having a hard time, expressing what that would look like, you might want to bring up to that visual, like what does a 20-pound dog look like, right? In my own case, I wanted to start off with a reveal about what it was like to actually speak. To run at UCLA. So this was my first reveal. Let's go into play from current slide. Okay, great. So this was my very first reveal in terms of like what it was like to be an athlete at UCLA. So it was kind of a way that was showing like the energy, the love, the fascination that I had with this track. This was my dream was to run at UCLA. And so I wanted to show people what it looks like, what it felt like to actually be in the stands at a time when we could still all be in stands. So if you have something that you want to reveal, pictures and a very simple picture, no text with the exception of down in this right-hand corner that says courtesy of UCLA, is a great opportunity to use a visual, okay? So I'm going to stop for just a second because the second time that you might want to consider using slides is if you have to explain, okay? If you have to explain something. So in other words, one of the principles that we have in storytelling is as much as possible, show, don't tell. As much as possible, show, don't tell, okay? But what does that mean when it actually comes up to like sharing like slides? Well, sometimes it's hard to actually know what to say if you're trying to explain it with just your words, right? So in my own presentation, there was this moment where I was having a really, really, really hard time. I definitely did not want to be at UCLA. I didn't consider myself to be a Bruin. And so what I did was I was drawing a picture for people. I was explaining to them, I was showing them that my soul, like everything about me, had been set up for me to be an athlete. So I was explaining to them that this is what my hair would look like because I really wanted, I felt powerful when I had like these lightning bolts in my hair. I wanted to explain that this had been part of my journey from the time that I was like young. This was like me winning one of my first major meets as a kid. And I wanted to show a little bit about what I had gotten away with because I was an athlete and because I was constantly being written up in the newspapers and media, especially because I was living in a smaller area, smaller part of California, where I was the top of my class in terms of running. And so I wanted to explain by showing them some images of me running, some more newspaper clippings. But the one thing that I hadn't really thought about that was really kind of a pivot for the ways that I had ever presented was the moment that I had to explain what it felt like to not know what it was going to be like to not be an athlete. And so the curators from TED turned to me and they say, well, how did it feel? Like, I had drawn all these images of what it was like previously to be an athlete, and then to have this injury that happened at UCLA. And so I explained in my talk that if I had to draw an image of what it was like, of what my life was going to be like, it was this skinny Black girl running with like these lightning bolts in her hair, right? Getting a lot of accolades in the press. And if I had to draw another picture of what my life was going to look like, I would have drawn a blank. A blank. Does anybody see anything on my screen? Raise your hand if you can see anything on my screen. There's nothing on my screen. There's absolutely nothing on my screen. And this is exactly what the audience saw when I went to this particular slide. Everything else had some type of visual, some type of an effect to it. But there's a power sometimes in actually just using a blank slide. It draws the attention directly back to the storyteller or the speaker in a way that is so powerful because all of a sudden it's just like back on that one person, right? Y'all feel me? Do y'all feel me on that? I mean, can you imagine like that all of a sudden you're just like there and the focus is on you. Um, so let's see here. I've got a question from Regina. Reveal the no text on slides. Is that because we want them to focus on you as a speaker? Well, yes. So for part of the reveal, in general, one of the things that TED and a lot of organizations like TED recommend is that we only keep, you want to be able to like not recite what it is that you're going to say. You want to be able to supplement what you're saying with your images, right? So in other words, you don't want to use your slides as a crutch, okay? Absolutely do not put in bullet points on your slides. Do not put bullet points on your slide. Leave bullets for guns, okay? That's not a good analogy. Use bullets, leave the bullets behind, okay? Just leave the damn bullets behind. What we want to do is we want to be able to like add value, aesthetic value to what people are seeing in order to make sure that they're still listening to you. We're supplementing, you know, what people are feeling by images, but for the most part, we want them to focus on you. Okay? That make sense, Regina? Okay, excellent, excellent. So, so you want to use slides if you have something to reveal. In other words, something that's hard to describe. You want to use slides when you want to show, not tell. So something that might be hard to like explain just with like their words alone, or to like to accentuate. And the last part that you want to think about using slides is to delight. Delight. Okay. And this is another way of like kind of like giving your audience like a nice big hug, like an embrace, right? So in my particular case, I'm going to go back to my slides for just a quick second here. I'm going to show you the one way or the two ways that I try to delight my audience going into my conclusion. So in my, oops, here we go. In my conclusion, going into, oh, this was another picture of Dwayne. This is a little bit more of this is I would say a little bit of combination of explaining and delight, because I wanted to show that he was about to win this race. Like this was like one of the races I talked about. He was right there. You could see this in the picture. He was right there, and then something happens that he didn't quite manifest. But anyways, this right here, I don't know if y'all can see my little mouse, but this right here is my mama. That's mama. That's my twin brother. But that's not the slide that I was trying to get to. I wanted to get to these last couple of slides. I wanted to delight people with the joy of my twin brother's face when he is at the Special Olympics, and when he's with his coaches, and when he's just like getting the love and support that he needs, right? This is him with my dad. This is like just one of my like favorite pictures. You can see my dad's hand on his leg there. And last but not least, I wanted to delight my audience with this last slide. And this last slide was me graduating from my dream. It was, I actually attended Harvard, which is something that I never thought would happen in my life, because all through college, I was just like, I'm staying in California. And then I was really inspired by some people I met, actually went to Harvard. But I wanted to delight my audience with this last image, because you can kind of see the difference between myself and Dwayne. I'm much taller than him. But you know, you can see that we clearly look alike. And this is how I wanted to like end and delight my audience with a simple picture that kind of showed the journey that we had been on. Right? I mean, look at those faces. Look at those faces. If you can't see this on Instagram, just go ahead and, you know, join the Ideas That Ignite group. Okay? So let me make sure that we are back here. There we go. Awesome. So those are the three main times when you're going to want to use you're gonna want to use slides. to reveal, to explain, and then to delight. Okay? So far, so good? So far, so good? Give me some thumbs up or like, yeah, get in it, understanding, right? A couple of additional tips in terms of slides in general. You want to make sure that you're using like large font. If you do type out anything, large font, 24 plus, okay? Contrasting colors. So if you have like, like a white background, use like a black coloring or like, some type of contrast in your coloring. And most importantly, when you are pulling something from the internet, you need to give credit to where that photo is coming from. So you'll probably notice on my very first slide from UCLA, it says courtesy of UCLA. Okay, cool. Oh, what's up, Devin? What's up, brother? I see you in the house. Yes, I know that I asked at the beginning of the presentation, how many of these have you been to? Because this is number 9 going into number 10 next week. So I'm curious. I think that you've probably, I don't know, 5, 6. If you know, put it in the chat box because I'm curious. Okay, so that's a little bit of the presentation angle of actually like of actually showing and using slides. Okay, as it relates to memorization, memorization is also really kind of key and critical for a couple of different reasons. It's really been 9. It's really been 9. At the top of the session, I talked about each one of the 9, and I'll go back over which one of the 9, of all the 9 in a moment, so you can recap and review if you need to, okay? So, yeah, Devin said that you're not sure the number, but you always either watch them live or after the fact. I know you're on top of it, brother. You've been here from day 1. So, all right, so y'all ready to shift a little bit more now into actually memorization techniques? And this is all to enhance what we're going to be calling your presentation literacy. Your presentation literacy, okay? Christina is asking, is there a way we can review all of the videos again? Absolutely, absolutely. So all of them, if you go to the Ideas That Ignite page, which I know that you're already on, you can go to the little tab that says Media, and under the Media tab, it'll have all the videos. All of them except for the very first week are there. All of them except for the very first week are there. So just as a quick recap, I think I have the list here. Yes. So the first one was how to find stories worth sharing. That's only on Instagram. But if you want access, I can get you that. How to find stories worth sharing. August 6th, expansion and contraction. Elements to edit stories. August 13th was I Feel You, sharing mesmerizing moments. August 20th was from mundane to magnificent, finding like really minuscule details of reading the fine print, right? August 27th, mind maps and formats. How do you actually like format using like sticky notes? September 3rd was choosing and crafting your TED-worthy idea, right? So actually shifting from the stories into the ideas. September 10th was the art of through lines, taking your audience on a journey. September 17th was the art of mobilizing masses and persuading the pessimistic. All right, so all of those you can check out in the Ideas That Ignite Media tab. You'll see them hopefully listed. And I'm going to clean up the content a little bit later. But in case you missed it, the 5-day summit is going to be epic. Epic. So I'm going to get more into that a little bit later because I talked about it at the top of the session. But basically, just block off the week of the 5th, 1 p.m. Pacific, 4 p.m. Eastern. 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th. Every single day, we're having a speaker join us here for exclusive content. Exclusive content. So anyways, all right. So y'all ready to jump back into presentation techniques? Okay, cool. Let's do it. So, and I'm going to go back over some of my notes as well in terms of memorization techniques. All right, so as it relates to actually memorizing your content, right? One of the things as a storyteller, one of the things you can think about as a storyteller is where are the beats of your story? In other words, where is your story landing, right? So if we go back for just a quick second to narrative arc, y'all remember narrative arc? Give me a thumbs up if y'all remember like some of this. I can share with you my screen in case you don't recall what narrative arc is, or in case you've missed any of the last talks. Let me just kind of show you what we're talking about here. Okay, you all see my screen okay? Right? So as we're looking at structuring a story, more or less a story is gonna have 5 main chunks, I would say, okay? So the setup is the first chunk, which is like, who are you at the very beginning of your story? That's the setup. The second chunk is gonna be what happened to set that story into motion. In other words, like what is the inciting incident that sets the story into motion? The third chunk, which is actually like a little bit more of the meat and potatoes, as we're going back into meat and potato, nuts and bolts, potato, tomato, all that kind of stuff. This is the crux of your story. Is what did you try and do to achieve that goal? What challenges were you up against? The fourth chunk is going to be the aha moment, when things start to shift. Like if everything is kind of going this way, and suddenly there's like the winds are going to shift, and something's about to change the course of that story, right? So it's like that aha moment, that Oprah Winfrey shift, aha. And then who were you afterwards? Okay, so if you think about your story in terms of these 5 chunks, the first thing that you want to do is to memorize your first line, memorize your last line. Okay, first thing you want to do is memorize your first line, so you know exactly where you're starting, no hesitation, nothing to stop you from going in, just launching into it, and memorize your last line so you know how to end with power. Okay, so Devin, I remember a couple of weeks ago you asked about starting with a scene. Excellent, great. Start off with, you know, I'm drowning in the middle of the ocean, hoping that I can get up to the surface in time, right? You're building a scene you're automatically in the story, right? So whatever that first line is, memorize that first line, memorize that last line. Also, if you're a storyteller and cannot use notes for your presentation, you also want to memorize your transitions. Okay, so the transition from segment 1 to segment 2, right? So if you know a little bit of the details about the setup of the story, you know, you can go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Let me scroll down. By the way, if you all have not received your copy of the workbook, the Art of Storytelling and Leadership workbook, make sure to check it out at bit.ly/storytellingleadership. It looks like this. Okay, it looks like this, and I will put that in the comments if you all need. But what I'm presenting now is all in the workbook. Okay, so if you're looking at the workbook, basically you want to have the first line of your beginning memorized. The transition. What is the transition line in between your beginning and your spark? A lot of times that transition might be like, and then one day something happens, right? Memorize that and then one day, because that's your first transition, okay? Your next transition might be each one of these like little building blocks that you're building as the story progresses. So that might be, if you think about yourself physically wandering into like a room, for example, or say like you're walking into your house. You're walking into your house and you can literally assign each room or each thing that you see as a memory point for where I'm going with my story. So in my particular house, we walk down the hallway, you turn right, and you're into like the whole study office area, right? If you're trying to remember where you are in your own journey, what does my office represent? Oh, okay, my office represents when I was at UCLA, right? And then if we come out of my office and then I go into my kitchen represents what it was like to be in pain and despair, right? So in other words, what people sometimes do is they allocate different parts of their story to a memory that can be traced or that can be literally planted, like physically or mentally planted in different rooms of your house or of your apartment or of a place that you know very, very, very well, right? So that's how sometimes I build up my memory bank for like, where am I going on this journey? Like, where am I taking people, right? And then once again, you want to memorize the transition into that aha moment, which is typically pretty easy because it's like usually like the crux of the story or the crux of the presentation when you get to that Oprah Winfrey aha moment. And then keep in mind, as a storyteller specifically, you don't need a lot of time to wrap up your story. You don't need a lot of time to wrap up your story. So there may not necessarily be a transition into your conclusion, but you do want to know where it is that you're landing with the story. Okay, so let me stop sharing for just a second here. Make sure that you all are good. Is this making sense so far? Right? So you can literally use different places in your house or in your memory banks to think about, okay, like what did I plant in each one of these rooms? And this is the technique and a process that I picked up from a book that's called Moonwalking with Einstein. It was about this journalist who decided that he wanted to go into like the World Memory Championships. You know, people who could like kind of like memorize like an entire deck of cards in like just by like looking at it once, and putting like each one of those cards in like a certain room. And these people are like amazing at like being able to like, so you say your name once, they got it because they're able to like have different like word affiliations, blah, 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 blah. Anyways, if you're interested in that kind of stuff, definitely check out Moonwalking with Einstein. It's a great book, and can actually teach you a lot of the techniques that we're talking about today. Okay, cool. So y'all doing good so far? Y'all doing good so far? Cool. So what I'm doing right now, by taking this pause and refreshing with water, leads me perfectly into my next point. Mentally, we need to get ourselves rooted in our talk so well, or in our story so well, that it is in our bodies. Okay, that's in our bodies. So what I want to talk about now is a little bit between the difference between scripted versus unscripted talks. Okay, when do you script and when do you not script? Well, to break some of the stuff down, at least from the perspective of TED, I should first mention that in terms of using visuals, only about a third of the TED Talks that are out there have no visuals. It's a little bit harder to quantify how many of them are scripted versus not, because what happens is a lot of people tend to script their talks, right? The majority of TED Talks are scripted. Now there's kind of two different train and philosophies when it comes into like scripting versus not scripted. If you decide to script your talk, you need to know it well enough where it is in your soul, it is in your body, so that you are not reciting your talk, you're performing it, you're living it. Okay? Does that make sense? If y'all are feeling me on that one, put living the talk or performing the talk, not reciting the talk. Okay? There's a great difference. Now, how do you know if you have it well enough memorized to actually just jump onto a stage? If you can go and dribble a basketball while still getting across everything that you need to say in your talk, if you can multitask, if you can wash dishes, if you can take a shower, go on a damn bike ride, walk your dog, and still tell your entire presentation without stuttering, without falling, then you are in good place. I see you, Tasha. Yes, living the talk. Give me a living the talk or being your talk, right? If you feel this, because it's one of those things where like if you feel like you're memorizing, if you feel like you're in your head, it's going to show that you're in your head. So, so, and you can see it. People who have their talks like recited, you could feel it. Like their throat is kind of dry. They might be kind of like really kind of like thinking like where they're at instead of actually connecting with their audience. Okay. So, Devin says, makes sense. Sometimes I struggle with this because I sometimes overdo it and it becomes visually scripted. Like it becomes stale for me as a speaker. Exactly. And this is what happens a lot of times when we also, as presenters or as storytellers, when we've told our story over and over and over again, right? It can almost feel like it's becoming like mundane or like just kind of dry. We don't want that. We have to mentally get ourselves back into a place where you know it so well, but you have to refresh those feelings so that your audience is feeling it for the first time, because a lot of times they're going to be listening to it for the first time, right? So basically, if it's going to be scripted, get it to the point where you can perform it and perform it authentically and get it good. Now, if your talk is unscripted, some of the things that you want to think about are like, possibly like utilizing your slides as kind of like those little memory banks or those little parts of the presentation, So sometimes if you don't remember like where you're at, you can always just go to the next slide and then you should be like right back on track. Or like, as I mentioned, you can think about each room in your house or each room in a particular space as, what you're going to physically plant or mentally plant in each one of those rooms. But essentially what you want to be able to do if it's going to be unscripted is think about the big subjects for your talk and then just breaking it down the same way that you would break down your story map or, your story journey, and kind of keeping it really fresh. Okay. But like I said, majority of people are going to script it. But if you do, just make sure you're living in those moments. Okay. So this whole thing kind of reminds me of when I first started coaching a couple years ago. One of my first celebrity clients was a shark. It was one of the sharks from the show Shark Tank. And she comes to me and she's like, well, Dawn, I feel like I'm having a hard time connecting with my audience. And so I asked her, I was like, okay, let's kind of like go through like, what have you been doing in the past? And she says, well, I pretty much have my entire presentation. I have it like scripted out and I put it behind the podium and, I kind of like read through it. And then when I have those story parts, kind of like walk away from the podium and kind of come back to the podium and I'll share the story and kind of come back to the podium for the main points. And so I said, wait a minute, hold on a second. Time out. How tall are you? And she tells me that she is 5'2". 5'2". It's like, okay, wait, you're 5'2". And how tall is a typical podium? Put in the chat how tall you think a typical podium is. Any podium. How tall do you think a podium is? Because in this case, she's using the podium and she's like this, right? She's talking to her audience like this, behind the podium, and then coming out to share a story, and then she's behind the podium again. All 5'2" of her, right? Of course, you're not going to connect with your audience if you're hiding behind a podium. Yeah, 5'5", maybe, Devin, maybe. I think if you're lucky, it's 5'5". I don't even know. But, anyways, point being that when you have your talk off script and you can just use your slides as a memorization technique, you can much better connect with your audience. All right. So my last point in terms of scripting versus not scripting, and just how to like kind of like getting into this is the importance of mental preparation. The importance of mental preparation. So what does that mean? Well, there's going to be nerves. Anytime you give a presentation, anytime I give a presentation, I get nervous, right? It's part of the reason why I always have my handy bottle of water on hand. Because what happens is like adrenaline is a great thing. Adrenaline is a great thing because you can kind of like get yourself ready, kind of get yourself amped. But adrenaline can also be a challenge because it can also be the reason why your throat's getting dry. It can also mean the reason why you're not you're just like, your throat and mind are just kind of boggled. So one of the things that you can do is first and importantly, get into your breath. Get into your breath, get into your breathing, and use any type of mantra that you have. So some of my favorite mantras include this matters. This matters. Another mantra I have, I got this. I got this, right? Now, sometimes this might throw us a bit off because here I am, the day of my TED Talk in New York City. I'm breathing deeply. I have my water. I'm rehearsing. I'm going over my first line, which is like, I'm at the stands at UCLA. And I'm like going over my first lines. I'm breathing. I'm thinking. And then right there in front of me is Questlove from The Roots. Questlove from The Roots, y'all. I was like, yo, where's my camera? I gotta go get my camera. This is exciting. I can't believe he's here. Are you going on before me? Like, like all this kind of stuff. Adrenaline. Talk about adrenaline, okay? All of a sudden, just like my entire process, boom, out the window. And then as I'm thinking about going to go get my camera, I stop myself and I say, you know what? Let's get back to the breathing. Let's get back to the mantras. Because getting a picture with Questlove is going to be awesome, but having a really stellar presentation is going to be even better. Right? So almost everybody else, so to give you a little bit of context, I was the first speaker in the second half of the day of my TED Talk. So everybody who went, I think it was like either, all the people who went directly before me, all the people in the first half got pictures with Questlove, and everybody in the second half did not. So I do not have a picture with Questlove, but whatever. I did see him. He was presenting on the same stage as I was. I got the memory in my head and in my heart, right? But even happier was the fact that I got a great TED Talk out of it. Okay, so a couple of things that you can also kind of keep in mind when you are presenting is how many of y'all give me like a me if you get nervous, or if you like really have some type of something that pops up for you when you are presenting. What's up, Allison? I see you over on Instagram. So one of the things that actually like works really well with like basically like being in a place where you're not really comfortable is actually to acknowledge it. So Christina, I'm going to answer. This is perfect timing for your question. What do you have an disorder? How do you stop it? Right. One of the things you can do if you have if you have a stutter, if this is your first time presenting, one of the things you can do is acknowledge that for your audience. One of the things you can do is acknowledge that for your audience. Have you ever been at a show, for example, where somebody starts off with like, all right, I'm kind of nervous, but this is my first time doing this, so, bear with me. Your audience gets behind you. Your audience roots for you even more when you are really vulnerable and kind of are able to talk about that. If you have a stuttering problem, or if you've had a stuttering problem in the past, we've had a lot of, I've seen a lot of talks where people acknowledge the fact that they've had a stutter. I feel like now that Christina put this in the question, I'm saying like a lot, but if you know your talk well enough, that is eventually going to subside. You're going to start noticing when you're about to go for the and be able to kind of like stop yourself and just kind of ease yourself into your own body, into your own mind before going to that Sometimes what happens is the comes if you're talking fast or if you're not quite talking in your own voice or you don't know where you're at. So if you don't, take that moment to pause. You can walk away. You can get your water. Look back at your notes if you need to. And you can take away those ums. Okay? So take your time. Take your time with your presentations. Notice when you're saying your ums, when you're going back over, like when you're reviewing it. Look at those times that you're using those ums. And little by little, you'll be able to start to realize that I use that as a crutch when I'm nervous, or I'm using that as a crutch when I'm not so sure where I'm going. But think about and see specifically when you're using your ums, and that should be able to help get you into the right mindset of not using them. Okay. So so in terms of the mental prep, if it's the adrenaline that's getting you, use your adrenaline to your benefit, but make sure that you're balancing it out with like getting some water, some breaths, some meditation. If you're feeling like, you're really anxious or you're feeling vulnerable about your ums or the way you speak, you can acknowledge that if it's your first time doing it and your audience was going to be on your side. And last but not least, one of my favorite things about speaking in this kind of setting is finding friends in the audience. Finding friends in the audience. So what does that mean? A lot of times what you want to be able to do is like look out and see like, where is there a sympathetic face? Where is somebody that's out there that's kind of like either nodding or smiling? Make eye contact with them. Let them know that you're speaking to them because they're going to keep on like nodding and feeling you. And that's going to really help you know that you got this. You got this. All right? You got this. So those are my main points in terms of some of the things I wanted to cover in terms of memorization techniques, actually calming your nerves, how to not get spooked, how to not use these ums, right? These are some of the things that I wanted to talk about today in terms of utilizing your slides and utilizing or not utilizing slides, scripted versus unscripted, and how to actually become a little bit more in your body when presenting. Okay, so I am going to sign off of Instagram, and I want to talk a little bit more about what's happening in the upcoming weeks, specifically for my people on Ideas That Ignite. So y'all can just hang tight there for just a second. I am going to end the stream on Instagram. Thank you, everybody on Instagram. If you're interested in checking out these slides or anything else that we got going on, go ahead and check out the Ideas That Ignite Facebook group. We're all hanging out in there. We're building community, and we're having a good time with it. All right? Gelado. Yo, my homegirl Gelado has just jumped on the line. I only got a minute left on the live stream on Instagram. So if you want to catch the rest of it, I'm going to be talking about our 5-day summit, which I think you saw a little bit about what was happening. You know a little bit about behind the scenes. But anyways, if you want to watch the rest of what's happening in the summit that's coming up, go ahead and join us over at the Ideas That Ignite page. All right? Love you. Talk to you soon. Oops. Couldn't save. What do you mean? And now I'm not out of space, Instagram. All right, put that to the side. We'll get to that later. All right, so any questions in terms of what I've covered so far in terms of presentation and memorization techniques? Anything so far? I'll let you collect your thoughts or anything that's popping up for you. In the meantime, I am going to pull back out this amazing lineup of speakers coming to us for the live summit. The live! Oh my gosh, y'all. All I have to say is save the dates and invite your friends. Oops. don't know how to spell October. Invite your friends because October 5th to the 9th, we are going to have our mini summit. And the mini summit is going to have so many rock stars. You are not going to want to miss this. So October 5th to the 9th. On the 5th, we're going to have Shannon Kaysen from Homemade Stories. Shannon is a G. He is such a G. He was in my Story to Speech to Sale course a couple of years ago, was able to leverage his TEDx talk into a 6-figure business, okay? And he's a podcaster. He shares stories. That's what he does. And he coaches people like I do as well, right? So he's going to be talking a little bit about how he did this by leveraging his story into a TEDx talk and his TEDx talk into a massive, great creative business, okay? October 6th, Daphne LeBlanc from Cafe and Laptop, showing us how a social media strategist uses her own media platform in order to get booked gigs time after time after time. October 7th, we're going to be talking about your 1-minute video audits. I'm going to talk about that in just a second. But think about your 1-minute video, like what you would want to present or say if you had to present this idea to TED or TEDx. We're going to be doing some audits of your video. October 9th, Felicia from iBook You Close. So how she can actually work with you to, she books the gigs, you close the gig. So she finds them, you close them, all right? She has a whole business centered around that. And then October 9th, we have Chloe Shasha, who is, I should say, the speaker curator from TED. The speaker curator from TED is going to be joining us. Now, I'm hoping that all of this can be recorded. Still looking at some of the legal stuff with having somebody from TED staff speaking to us, but just to be safe, just mark it on your calendars now. Just mark it on your calendars now, okay? And then the program itself, the mastermind, where our group is going to be coming together for group coaching, is going to be kicking off on October 19th, and we'll be starting registration October 9th. Okay, so the last day of the summit, we're going to be opening registration October 19th. The program will officially begin. And this program is specifically tailored for you all. It's going to be live like this. So that's why I've been utilizing a lot of this technology to make sure I know how this stuff all works. But to make sure that you guys have the information that you need in order to start submitting all your information to TED and TEDx in 2021. Okay, so that is what we got going on. Oh, got the orange. Oh, yeah, y'all feeling it? Y'all feeling it? If you're feeling it, if you're feeling this, like, give me a hell yeah. Give me a let's rock this. Give me a bop, a bop, a bop. Oh, and give me a bop. Yeah. Give me a bop. Anybody want to join me on screen? Oh, I'm so sorry. So excited that I totally forgot that I wanted to make sure that Regina and anybody else who had questions today could come up on screen and join me on the chat. So if you want to join me on the chat, go ahead and just say me in the text box. Put a me in the text box, or go ahead and type out your questions, and let's jump into some Q&A. Let's jump into some Q&A. Let's see. Are you still with us, Regina? I'm not so sure who's on the live stream. I'm not so sure who is on the live stream. I just see a number. Any questions? I'm just going to leave it for a quick second. I'm going to check over here and just see if we got any questions. Christina, cool. Did you want to jump on the stream, Christina? Yep. Okay, great. I'm going to send you an invite. Copy. Give me a second. Lots of questions answered today. Okay, great. I got you, Regina. Okay, so Christina, give me a quick second. I'm going to send you the link to jump on the live stream in your messenger. That should be coming to you in 3, 2, 1. Great. I forgot that I also included it in the description for this live stream. Okay. Christina says, as long as I don't mind that you're in a robe, girl. Now you're just teasing everybody. Let's see your robe. I want to see what kind of robe you rocking. So as we get Christina up on the screen, let's go to Natasha's question. Cool. I see Christina is backstage. So before I bring you up, Christina, just hang tight for 1 second, right? Cool. The reason before that you use slides before reveal and delight. So those are pretty much 3 reasons to reveal something that's hard to describe. So if it's really hard to, like, for a lot of scientists, for example, like it's hard to know, for example, it's hard to know what 200,000 deaths from the coronavirus looks like. So what you might be able to do is pull up a slide that shows what 100,000 people, or what does 10,000 people look like, right? So you might have like a stadium, and then show that stadium times 20, right? Or something like that. So when something is really hard to describe, especially like numbers, data, things that are kind of like hard to understand, that's when you want to be able to use reveal, right? Explaining is when you want to be able to show versus tell. So in other words, when in my own story, when I wanted to show people what it was like to feel like I was losing my identity, I drew a blank. And so I had a slide up that was literally blank. It was literally like a black slide. Okay. So sometimes you want to have you want to explain one core idea, and sometimes delight is just like kind of like adding that extra ways of delighting your audience with something visually that's beautiful, but no bullets. Bop, 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 bop. Keep them bullets away. Okay, keep them bullets for your dance hall. All right, cool. So hope that answers your question, Natasha. Let's bring Christina up. Let's see. Awesome. Hey. Was that your son?
Yeah, you call my older son.
Hey there, son. What's up?
Yeah. Just go.
Okay. Just go.
Of course he's.
Awesome. How you doing today?
Okay.
Excellent. You're in a different location?
No, I'm still home, still in my apartment.
Okay, gotcha. I think last time you had like something in the background, but I can't quite recall.
Oh yeah, but there's just too much stuff that my husband's calling me a hoarder right now. I don't throw anything away at the present time.
Oh my gosh, too much. Well, I'm so glad that you have been such a, you've been here for like so many of these streams, and so active and so present. So I'd love to answer anything that you want to see, anything that you've enjoyed, anything at all. What's on your mind?
Well, so I've really loved this, and I think for me an issue is translation somehow. Like I'm so used to writing like I guess the written form, that's what I'm used to, but also like the novel.
Yeah.
And this is like you have to be concise, and you need to know, like it's got to be in a few minutes, right?
Yeah.
And so like I'm like, I don't think I have a story that I can share, like that's so like stressful. How am I going to do that? Like, you know?
You have so many stories.
Well, I no, I mean, it's like so different when you're creating a story that is fiction, right? Like you can go anywhere, you can do what, and you can take your time. No one's
Right.
there watching.
Right.
But I feel like, well, now what am I going to talk about? What story could I possibly share? You know what I mean?
I feel you. I feel you. Do you, so the talks that you taught that we had mentioned before, were those, or are those talks that you've talked about before?
Those aren't so much talks as I do a lot of panels and I moderate for them. Like I'm doing one tonight for an organization that's like a writing residency and artist residency. So I just moderate and I host and I present these people and then I ask questions.
Got it.
So yeah, so the I've noticed the when I go back and watch them, and it really upsets me so much.
Right, right. And have you noticed when, so I have a couple of things that are coming up for me already, but have you noticed when you started to use ums?
Yeah, usually when I'm grasping to articulate something and the word isn't coming to me. And I don't know if it's an ADHD thing or if that's normal or whatever, but like then I start to panic, you know, what's that word? What's that word? What's that word?
Yeah. Yeah.
You know?
Can you acknowledge that when it's coming up for you? Can you catch yourself in time to say, what is that word that I'm thinking of? As opposed to saying the Are you able to kind of catch yourself before those moments?
You mean like actually say it out loud?
Yeah.
Is the word I'm looking for?
Yes.
Oh, so to acknowledge it.
Yeah.
Oh, I've never actually thought about that.
Yeah. Because what will sometimes happen is if you acknowledge like, God, what's the word that I'm thinking of? Sometimes people like, you know, that same type of effect that people want to like help you out. They might say, you know, do you mean like da 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 or da da da? Because people want to be able to support those who are almost like looking for it in a way. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's one thing that I would try.
Okay, I'm going to try that tonight.
Yeah, actually acknowledging like what's that word that I'm looking for, and taking your time, and instead of going to the just like, you know, possibly even like making eye contact with other people. You know, on this panel, are there people that you trust or that are going to be with you that you know? It's okay. It's okay. Go ahead. That's not one of those that you can.
There you go. I actually don't know these people too well. I've hosted one before, and the other person, I took the time to speak with him earlier today. So I actually have spoken with both of them before. One of them I've actually hosted before.
Okay. Okay. And it's going to be virtual, I'm assuming?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So with virtual, it's also, I mean, one of the comments I made was about trying to make eye contact with a sympathetic person.
Mm-hmm.
If that's all done virtual, you might also try that same technique, like looking at someone specific in your grid or in your screen that you feel is like the camera's on. You can see that they're being present. You can tell that they're not like in the background, like texting their mama or on Instagram or whatever the hell, you know, but they're actually being present. You can try to talk like you're talking to them. And one of the things
is usually these are very comfortable. There's very comfortable dynamic. It feels good. And then it's a shocker to me when I see that I'm umming.
Yeah, it can be frustrating, right? And take your time. Take your time when you're presenting. Try to see if you can catch yourself and say something different, or try to see if you can find a sympathetic watcher in your audience to know that when you're speaking, one of the things I recommend is that especially when you're speaking to like a large audience, one of the things you want to think about is you're speaking one-on-one with somebody times 100 or one-on-one times 500, right? So you want to make it feel as if every single person is having that one-on-one conversation with you. You're not talking to the auditorium. You're talking to one person. And that's also going to like help to like settle that weirdness that like, oh my God, I'm presenting to all these people. No, you're speaking to one person. And if you put that in your mind that you are speaking to that one person, it's going to feel a little bit more safe, and you probably won't go into like all those ums. As it relates to your question about specifically like how do I take all these ideas, all these stories, and actually like which one do I actually tell or share? We want to become like an engineer, and we want to work our way backwards. So you almost want to start off with like, what is the destination? What is the destination or the idea that I want to get across? And then build your moments, your stories, these ideas to get to that point. And you'll notice that there might be a lot of fluff that you don't necessarily need. There might be things that are said, or stories even, that serve the exact same purpose. And you might be sharing like too many stories that are leading to a certain point. And you can start to see like, actually, I don't need this part of the story, or I don't need this part of the narrative as I'm building towards this one main idea. So if you can, and we'll talk about this next week as well. But what I want you to do is think about, okay, where do I want to lead them to? And then you get to be the GPS. You get to be the GPS. So imagine a driver. A driver goes into their car. They put on their ultimate destination, right? So you're going to Target, and it's going to say, okay, great. You're going to make a right on Broadway. You're going to make a left on Chantilly. You're going to go straight for 5 miles, yada, 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 right? If I decide that I'm going to, instead of making a left on Broadway, I'm going to make a right on Broadway, it starts to recalibrate, right? It starts to recalibrate. So each time, imagine yourself that you are the GPS. The other person is in the driver's seat. They can decide that they're going to like veer to a different direction, but ultimately they still want to get to where you're taking them. So you get to be the GPS, their guide, in a way, as you're building up the different parts of the building blocks to your idea. And if those steps include turning right on Broadway, well, that first step be for somebody trying to get to your idea, or that second step be, right? And so we want to start to build it out, utilizing both stories and then content. This is one of the things I talked a little bit about in one of the previous sessions, but stories, content to build those blocks towards those ideas. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I mean, I think the thing that I told you last time, I think I got like off track, and so I've been thinking about it a lot more, and I think I have a much shorter, like, I mean, I'm talking just about like the arc, where I want to go and where I start. Like I can see where I start and I can see where I end. I'm not sure about the between.
Got it. So as we're starting to build the between, think to yourself, what purpose is this little content chunk serving?
What, the middle?
Yes.
Or
I mean, like when you're actually talking it out, when because you might start to go onto like a tangent, for example, and you'll notice that it's a tangent. You're kind of taking your audience off course because this particular moment is not necessary for where you're leading them to, right? But keep in mind, like, we need to be really specific about the destination. We have to be really specific about the destination. Because if it's kind of not very clear where it is that we're leading people, there might be a tendency of bringing in too much stuff, right? Or possibly even too little stuff. So we want to kind of think about specifically, like, where is it I'm taking my audience, and what might they already believe, or what might they already know that I might need to, address or distill. So, like, for example, in my case, I had a sense that people would know what it's like to want to be an Olympian. But I didn't really know if people understood what it was like to have a brother with special needs. And so I had to kind of build that out into my talk, what like little sprinkling notions of these moments that kind of showed what our relationship was like, you know, first from birth, then like this crux of a moment at the Special Olympics in my hometown before I even got to college, right? So, but if those little middle chunks aren't quite adding up for you, you might want to be able to to see like, is this really serving the purpose that I need? Is this really leading them to the destination, or is it a diversion?
Okay. Well, I'm gonna give it a shot and see if I'm going anywhere.
Okay.
Thank you.
Excellent. Excellent. Of course. No problem. No problem at all. Any other questions? Any other questions out there, or for you, Christina?
Nope, I'm good.
Cool. So for anybody who's watching this on replay, for next week, I'm going to be getting a lot more into this next week. But next week, we're going to be doing 1-minute video audits, and this is going to be the last of this series, this 2-month series. Can you believe it's been going on for 2 months? 2-month series. So 1-minute video audits. I'm going to be sharing again my video from my audition, as well as I think I still have my failed attempt at getting onto TED. I definitely have the application, but I need to double check to see if I have the actual video. So think about what you would say if you had to compress your entire talk into 1-minute pitch, a 1-minute pitch. In most cases, I'll give you like, a minute and a half if need be. But a minute pitch, like how would you say it? What would you say? We're going to be diving into that next week. And so the week after, we can start to actually see some of your stories. So Christina, I would love for you to actually think about how would I express my idea into a 1-minute pitch?
Me?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Oh my God. Oh my God. I'm sweating.
So don't worry about it. Next week, I'm going to give you a couple of samples, some really great samples, so that you can kind of like wrap your head around how it's done. But you'll start to see that if you can put together like a great 1-minute pitch, it's really going to help you like understand, okay, this is the idea, this is the main crux of it, and this is the why. All right. And if you can answer those 3 things really clearly, really succinctly, you can do your presentation in 1 minute. You can do your presentation in 6 minutes. You can do it in 1 hour, Let's see here. Devin is asking any hints on where to begin with a 1-minute pitch. Yeah, so great question, Devin. We want to start with like, what is the main idea? What's the main idea, right? So once again, we want to be able to kind of take people ultimately to that end goal. Some of the things that you want to think about, and I mentioned this, I think it was last week as well, is why now? Why now? In my pitch, one of the things you might remember is that I included that March 28th is National Down Syndrome. I'm sorry, March 21st is National Down Syndrome Awareness Day. So you can think about why now in terms of the news, why now in terms of it being timely, why now in terms of people not knowing that this is important. But why now? B, the idea. B, why now? C, where have you been or what have you experienced that has led you to this particular moment? So, Devin, I've heard a couple of your stories where you've had kind of similar themes. So which one of those stories kind of best fits into whatever that theme is that you can share, like kind of like high level view of the story. So for example, in my own pitch, I share this one moment, this one little scene where I'm at UCLA and I'm saying like, no, Dwayne, no, let the other runners go, right? Which is the scene. And then I shift into the thought, the thinking mind, which was saying verbally, which is probably not the most appropriate thing to be saying at the Special Olympics. Right? So I consolidated a scene, a much bigger scene that I ended up sharing in the talk into like a snippet, just a moment, a flash second that I could include as I was building out the rest of the pitch. Okay. So if you can think about like a scene or a scenelet, as I call them, scenelets are like little mini tiny scenes that you can include. If you can think about like where you're leading them, that is going to help put it into, and the timeliness of it, that's going to help you think about the little tiny content chunks that you're going to need as you're building your 1 minute story. I mean, your 1 minute pitch. Sound good?
Wait, so A was why now?
Yes. A is where you're taking them. What's the idea?
Oh. No wonder. Okay, good.
Got it? Cool. Awesome. Excellent. Any other questions? Yes. So A is the idea. B is the why now. You want to let us know what C is? What's C, Devin? What's C? What's C? What's C? What's C? Oh, man. Oh, my God, was so great. Thank you. What's C, Devin? What's C? Do you want to remind you all?
I know.
Yeah, tell us.
What you've experienced that led you to this moment. Like
exactly.
A scenelet.
Yes, the scenelet. I guess I'll change this into a banner because Devin is
the scenelet with like a bow.
Yes, scenelet. I'm not so sure if that's how you spell it, but whatever. Yeah, there we go. And C is the scene. Awesome. Sound good? Excellent. Awesome. Cool. Any other questions out there in Facebook land? And now we're like going on an hour and a half now. So thank you all for joining today and for, oh, you said sorry, distracted dad over here. Yeah, excuses. Just kidding, brother. You know I love you. All right. Any other questions or anything else before we sign off of session number 9?
I have a question. What if you have an idea of the beginning and you have an idea of the end, but you're not clear about what the main idea is?
Yeah. So the main idea,
it's like, I guess I've never been good at summing things up.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I've never been good at, that's maybe why I'm a novelist. Because I need a couple hundred pages to say what I'm thinking.
Yeah, it's a challenge. What you want to do for the idea is you want to be able to articulate it in one sentence, 1 or 2. So what I would do is I would kind of go into my own like notebook. Mm-hmm. I had it around here. But to go into your notebook and start to either write down, depending on if you're a writer or if you're more of a talker, try and talk out your idea in a sentence.
Okay.
And play around with it. You know, like it might not come out right the first time. It might feel weird. You might try to reiterate it. And the more that you do that, the more that one of them is going to start to feel right. And it's really going to help in order to figure out like why it is that you want to share this particular moment. Keep in mind that it might actually get modified as you actually give the talk in terms of like what it means to other people. So,
a couple minutes.
Sorry, a couple minutes, son. She'll be right with you. So, for example, in my own talk, what I thought I was going to be leading up to was this idea of special needs and special gifts, right? But when TED released it, they were like, it's also, though, if you listen to the content that you're sharing, it's also about redefining what it means to win, right? That wasn't my initial intention. But the blocks that I was leading to included that same information. So the key here, Christina, is like to think about where you're taking your audience, putting in all those pieces. But at the end of the day, people are going to have their own takeaways from your talk. This is especially true for storytelling. For stories, like a lot of times what I say is that stories are an offering. They're a blessing. If you listen to a moth story, we're not telling people what to do, what to say, what to think, what to believe. Everyone kind of has their own interpretation, like the different parts of the story that they latched onto. For TED, we do need that. We do need some type of like call to action. We do need some type of like resolution. But if you're building out the story in a way where there might be different iterations or different takeaways, you can kind of sometimes get to a different conclusion, even though you have the chunks of the story there. So all that to say that you might have like one idea, and then you tweak it a little bit, and you tweak it a little bit more, and you tweak it a little bit more, and you're eventually going to settle on one of them that feels right for you. But when you read between the lines, it could actually mean a couple different things. And don't worry about that. Just worry about the iteration that you want to be able to share for your particular talk. Cool?
Cool. Okay, shot.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Let's see. Of course. Devin says that you're a distracted parent too. So.
Okay.
Let's see here. We got another question. What if you have competing ideas? Not that they contradict each other, but picking between a few ideas, like how to know which idea is a good idea to land us on TED. Excellent question. One of the speakers that I have not yet confirmed, but his name is Julian Gordon. He did three TED Talks, and as a storyteller, I'm sure that you know that there's a million stories that are inside of each one of us, and a million stories that we could share at any given point in time. One of the things that you're going to want to think about is which one of these topics or moments is most going to resonate now. So when I had my conversation with Chloe, we were setting up the 5-day summit a couple days ago. But when I was talking to Chloe, one of the things that we started talking about was the fact that right now, if you want to do a TED Talk, it might be virtual. And it's going to be virtual because that's just the state of TED right now. So I asked her, if somebody were to come to you and be accepted onto the TED stage, but to say to you, I really want to be able to do this presentation live, do they have that option? Do they have that option to defer? And she explained to me that they do. They have that option to defer, but TED may not necessarily want it at that point in time in the future because it may not necessarily be relevant anymore. So, and they have full discretion as to whether or not they're going to put it on the TED.com platform. So, in other words, the timeliness of the message is kind of a big part. If you have a bunch of different ideas, which one do you think is the idea that needs to be spread now, and why? If you have a bunch of stories that kind of lead into the same idea, then you're good, because then it's just a matter of choosing the story or the stories, the core story and the supporting stories that's leading up to that main idea. If it's about the idea itself, definitely think about the timing of it. Like, why is this something that we need to talk about now? Mental health, for example, has been talked about for quite some time. When, let's see, I'm trying to remember when he had his presentation. Anyways, I'm thinking about a particular student who did the presentation, like kind of before people were really acknowledging mental health in schools. So if it's a new concept or something that people aren't really talking about yet, that's a great time to get on it. Imagine it's like surfing. I don't surf, but it's like catching a wave, right? Before something becomes like super popular, when it's just becoming like a spark of an idea, you want to be able to to get on that wave, so that as people are starting to learn about it, they're learning about it through you and other people who are like you. But you want to catch that wave before it gets too big of a topic. If you try to do a talk right now about coronavirus, it's kind of late. We've been dealing with it for 6 months, right? The guy who talked about pandemics, I think it was Bill Gates. He talked about that years ago. That talk is now blowing up. It blew up even before this particular pandemic, but he was way, way, way early to that wave. So think about the timeliness of it. Think about which audience, what audiences need to know now. That's going to be a big part of helping, of choosing your idea or spreading. And when we have Chloe on, I'm sure she'll be able to answer some more of those questions too. Actually, now that I'm mentioning it, go ahead and any questions that you have for any of our speakers, for Daphne, Shannon, Chloe, Felicia, go ahead and just have those ready for our mini summit starting off on the 5th.
Can you post the names somewhere so that we can remember them?
Oh, sure.
You could just do it on your Ignite page.
Yeah, I'll share that in the Facebook group, and you'll start to see all next week. I'll be creating little logos like I've done for the Storytelling Tip Thursdays for each one of the speakers, so that you'll know what's coming up.
Thank you.
Sounds good.
I'm gonna go and get ready.
Awesome.
Thank you.
So great having you.
Bye.
See you. All right, y'all. So that is our presentation for today on Not Getting Spooked, presentation memorization techniques. Hope you all have been enjoying these sessions. As I mentioned, if you want to check out any of the stuff that we've done before, go to the Ideas That Ignite page, check out that media tab, and then go to videos. You'll be able to see the full shebang bang. And as we wrap up here, I just want to show you what's going on behind the scenes. That is what's happening behind the scenes. Yes. That's what I have to look forward to. All right, y'all. It's been real. Thanks so much for joining, and I'll catch you next week. Peace.